You can always tell when a woman touches a man's heart because his reactions shift instantly. Sometimes she says something simple, something honest, and he changes, not because he's trying to impress her, but because he's already emotionally invested. In this video, I'm going to show you the exact sentences a woman says that reveal, without any doubt, that he is already in love with her. When a woman speaks in a way that shows emotional openness, it signals something deeper than attraction or curiosity. It reflects a foundation of safety she feels in his presence. Safety is not a dramatic feeling, it's a subtle shift where she stops performing, stops pretending, and starts being honest. When she expresses herself without fear of judgment, she is unconsciously responding to the emotional environment he has created. And the truth is, a man cannot create that environment unless he is already emotionally invested. His energy, tone, patience, and consistency make her feel that her voice matters. A woman does not open up in this way for a man who is half interested or temporary. She does this when she senses that he is already connected to her on a deeper level. You will notice this in the way she begins to share things she wouldn't normally share, little fears, small insecurities, or experiences that shaped her. She doesn't do this to seek validation. She does it because the emotional tension in the interaction has lowered. She trusts the space between them. And trust doesn't come from words. It comes from how he responds to her energy. When a man has already fallen for her, he listens differently. He pays attention, not because he is trying to win her, but because her emotional world has become important to him. A woman can feel that instantly. His presence is stable, not reactive. His responses don't feel rushed or forced, and that makes her reveal a version of herself she usually guards. When she says something vulnerable like, I don't usually talk about this, or I feel safe telling you this, she is expressing a truth that is rooted in the way he has already been showing up for her. That sentence is not just about her, it's a reflection of his emotional presence. Men who are not invested dismiss vulnerability or become uncomfortable with it. But a man who is already in love doesn't flinch. He makes space for her softness. He doesn't try to fix everything immediately. He doesn't minimize what she feels. He simply listens with interest, with sincerity, with the kind of attention that can't be faked. In that moment, she doesn't even realize she is revealing something profound. He has become her emotional safe place. Another thing to understand is that emotional safety changes the way she speaks to him. Her tone softens, her guard drops. She becomes more expressive, more honest, more detailed when sharing her thoughts. She starts using phrases like, I like how I feel around you, or I don't feel judged when I talk to you. These sentences come naturally when she feels understood. And she feels understood because he has already been investing emotionally without announcing it. The shift in her communication is not her trying to impress him. It's her responding to the effect he already has on her. A woman also begins to share her needs more clearly when she feels safe. She might say, I appreciate how you listen, or I feel calmer when we talk. These are not casual statements. They show she recognizes the emotional comfort he provides. And emotional comfort is not something a man offers lightly. He offers it when his feelings are already involved. Women can sense this before he ever admits it. They feel it in his consistency, in his patience, in the way he remembers the details she shares. That is why her words become more open, more intimate, and more reflective. They mirror the emotional intimacy he has already created. Lastly, when she expresses gratitude for his presence or effort, it is because she feels secure with him. Emotional safety is always mutual. She opens up because his love, spoken or unspoken, has already made her feel protected, valued, and understood. When a woman starts expressing deeper emotions, her fears, her disappointments, the things that hurt her or confuse her, she is revealing a vulnerable part of herself. How a man responds to that vulnerability tells you everything about his emotional state. A man who is not emotionally invested will feel burdened, impatient, or indifferent when a woman becomes vulnerable. He might withdraw, deflect, or shift the conversation away from anything that requires emotional depth. But a man who is already in love reacts with an entirely different energy. He becomes protective, not in a possessive way, but in a way that shows he values what she feels. Her emotions become important to him because she has become important to him. And this shift is not accidental. It is a sign of emotional attachment he cannot hide. When she says something that exposes her softer side, like, I'm scared of losing people, sometimes I feel not enough, or I didn't feel supported in my past, a man who loves her doesn't rush to judge. Instead, he leans in. He listens more carefully. His tone becomes more grounded. His reactions become thoughtful. He starts choosing his words intentionally because he doesn't want to hurt her or trigger her insecurities. He becomes aware of how fragile some moments can be for her, and this awareness only happens when his heart has already aligned with hers. Men do not offer emotional gentleness lightly, they offer it when they feel deeply. You will also notice that he stops prioritizing his ego when she becomes vulnerable. Instead of becoming defensive, he becomes understanding. If she expresses something sensitive like, I didn't feel heard, he doesn't respond with pride or attack. He tries to understand where she's coming from, even if it challenges him. That shift from ego to empathy is one of the clearest indicators of emotional attachment. He is not trying to win an argument or prove a point. He is trying to protect the connection. And the desire to protect the connection means he has already fallen. Another sign is how he adjusts his behavior after she opens up. A man who is in love remembers what hurt her and becomes mindful of it. If she shares a boundary, he respects it. If she reveals a past disappointment, he avoids repeating it. If she expresses what makes her feel secure, he incorporates it naturally without being asked twice. He doesn't see her vulnerability as a weakness. He sees it as something precious. And because of that, he becomes more intentional in how he treats her. This intention is not performative, it is instinctive. Men don't adapt like this for someone they don't care about. When she expresses emotional truths, he becomes more patient with her. He gives her space when she needs it and support when she seeks it. He doesn't rush her healing or pressure her into being strong. He meets her where she is emotionally. He might say things like, I understand, you don't have to hide this from me, or I'm here. These words come from a place of genuine care, not obligation. A man in love becomes a safe presence when she is exposed emotionally. Her vulnerability activates his protective instincts, not his frustration. And perhaps the most telling sign is how serious he becomes about her emotional well-being. If she cries, his reaction softens. If she expresses fear, he reassures her. If she doubts herself, he reminds her of her worth. Even if he doesn't have the perfect words, he shows up with effort. Emotional effort is a language of love. Men do not show emotional effort consistently unless their heart is already involved. They may hide their feelings in other areas, but their response to a woman's vulnerability exposes everything. Her emotional openness becomes a responsibility he willingly accepts because he feels connected to her on a deeper level. He doesn't see her vulnerability as something to escape. He sees it as something to protect. That instinctive protection reveals his true emotional state long before he ever admits it. One of the clearest signs that a man is already in love is how he begins to shift his actions, habits, and responses based on what she expresses, without her needing to guide him or instruct him. This is not about changing his personality or losing his identity. It's about emotional awareness. When a woman communicates something meaningful, even casually, a man who is emotionally invested absorbs that information and adapts in ways that make her feel understood. He makes changes because he values the connection, not because he wants to impress her. Most men only adjust when they care deeply. It's natural, not forced. When he is already in love, her comfort matters to him in a way it never did before. You can see this in the smallest details. If she tells him she feels uncomfortable with a certain tone, he softens his delivery. If she mentions she likes consistency, he starts showing up more predictably. If she expresses a preference, like the kind of conversation she enjoys or the type of behavior that eases her anxiety, he incorporates it almost effortlessly. He is not doing this to manipulate her or gain points. He is doing it because he pays attention. Her words impact him because she matters to him. A man who is not invested will hear her but won't make changes. A man who is in love listens and adapts. Another important shift is the way he becomes more conscious of how his behavior affects her emotional state. When she mentions something that made her feel neglected, insecure, or dismissed, even in the past, he takes note. He doesn't want to be another source of disappointment in her life. His actions start reflecting a desire to create a different experience for her. If she expresses that communication inconsistency bothers her, he becomes more present. If she shares that she values emotional transparency, he starts explaining himself better. These adjustments are subtle but powerful indicators of emotional involvement. He wants to be someone she feels safe with. Men don't typically modify their patterns unless they are deeply connected. Most men operate comfortably in their routines and habits, but love disrupts that comfort zone. When he is already in love, he becomes willing to stretch, grow, and evolve for the sake of the relationship. Not because she demanded it, but because he doesn't want to lose the emotional bond that is forming. Her words influence him in ways she may not even realize. When she talks about what matters to her, he internalizes it. And emotional internalization is a clear sign he is already attached. You will also notice that he starts prioritizing awareness over impulsiveness. If she shares that something feels disrespectful or insensitive, even if she says it gently, he becomes more thoughtful before acting. A man who is not invested gets defensive when told to adjust. But a man who is already in love responds with understanding. He doesn't argue with her feelings. Instead, he reflects on them and tries to align himself. This shows emotional maturity and commitment, both of which are rooted in genuine affection. Adjusting without resistance is one of the biggest indicators that his heart is already involved. Another change is how he begins to anticipate her needs without being explicitly told. If she hints she is overwhelmed, he becomes more supportive. If she expresses she values reassurance, he becomes more expressive. If she mentions she appreciates certain gestures, he incorporates them consistently. He picks up on emotional cues and responds to them instinctively. This level of intuition comes only when he is emotionally invested. He is in tune with her experiences in a way that reflects genuine care. Lastly, when she says something that matters to her, whether it's a preference, boundary, or personal standard, he doesn't challenge it. He respects it. He aligns with it. He becomes more mindful of how he shows up around her. These changes might appear subtle on the surface, but they reveal deep emotional movement within him. A man only adjusts naturally and consistently when he is already in love. A man's vulnerability is one of the rarest emotional currencies in a relationship. Most men are raised to hide their insecurities, soften their disappointments, and carry their struggles in silence. They protect their emotional walls because opening up feels risky. But something changes when a woman says something that reaches his emotional core, something honest, something empathetic, something that makes him feel truly seen. That is the moment he begins to reveal parts of himself he doesn't show to the world. A man does not open that door unless he is already emotionally connected. Vulnerability is not accidental for a man, it is a choice that comes from love. You will notice that it often begins in subtle ways. When she shares something personal, meaningful, or vulnerable, it creates a mirror effect. He sees her openness and feels safe enough to reciprocate. Maybe she says, "I've been through things that made it hard for me to trust," or "Sometimes I feel like I'm not enough," or even "I appreciate that I can be honest with you." These simple statements touch him more deeply than she realizes. They show him that she values emotional honesty, and men respond strongly to being valued in that way. When he feels safe in her emotional expression, he begins to lower his guard. He starts revealing stories he kept hidden, fears he never voiced, or worries he usually deals with alone. This shift is not about weakness, it's about emotional intimacy. A man who is not invested will never reveal his fears or past disappointments because he has no reason to. He stays surface level. He keeps things light. He avoids depth because depth creates attachment and he doesn't want that. But when a man is already in love, he wants her to understand him, not the version he shows the world, but the real version underneath the confidence, responsibilities, or humor he hides behind. He begins sharing how he feels when he's stressed, when he's anxious, or when life overwhelms him. This level of openness only happens when his heart is already involved. Another powerful sign is when he shares personal failures or regrets. Men are very protective of anything that makes them feel inadequate. But when a woman touches his core through empathy or softness, he doesn't fear judgment. He doesn't worry about looking weak. Instead, he wants to be transparent. He might talk about a loss he experienced, a relationship that hurt him, a mistake he's still learning from, or a dream he's scared of pursuing. These are not casual topics for men. These are emotional truths he guards tightly. If he starts sharing them with her, it means her presence has already become a psychological refuge for him. You will also notice he becomes more expressive with his feelings around her responses. If she says something like, "I understand you," "I'm here," or "You don't have to hold everything alone," something inside him softens. Those words dismantle walls he may have built over years. Emotional safety is a trigger for men just as much as for women. When he hears words that validate his humanity, he stops pretending to be unshakable. He realizes he doesn't need to perform strength in front of her. He can simply be himself, and being himself is the purest form of intimacy he can offer. He may also begin to share dreams or fears about the future. This is another layer of vulnerability that only appears when he is emotionally attached. Men do not discuss their long-term hopes or insecurities unless they trust the person deeply. He might talk about what scares him professionally, what he wants to achieve, or why certain ambitions matter to him. These are pieces of his inner world that he usually keeps locked away. Her words, especially the ones that show emotional maturity and understanding, unlock those parts of him. And once he begins opening up, he becomes more consistent in expressing his inner thoughts. He stops giving short answers, stops avoiding emotional conversations, and starts allowing her into his mental space. This transformation is not random. It is the direct result of how her words affected him. When she speaks in a way that gives him emotional room, he fills that room with truth. That truth is his vulnerability, and a man only gives that kind of truth when he is already in love. Consistency is not something a man gives freely. It is not automatic and it is not random. It comes from emotional investment. When a woman speaks in a way that holds meaning for him, when her feelings, her needs, or her experiences resonate with him, his behavior shifts. He becomes steady, he becomes available, he becomes intentional. A man who is already in love shows consistency not because she demands it, but because her words influence him on a deeper level. What she expresses begins to matter to him, and when something matters, he shows up for it repeatedly. You will notice this shift in the way he maintains communication. If she mentions that inconsistency makes her anxious or that she values reliability, he begins to be more present. He remembers to check in, not out of obligation, but because he wants her to feel secure. He replies more thoughtfully. He follows through on plans. He doesn't disappear without explanation. He doesn't leave her guessing. Her emotional comfort becomes a priority because he is already emotionally linked to her. Men do not maintain presence where they feel indifferent. They maintain presence where they feel connected. Another sign of this consistency is how he starts paying attention to the little things she says. If she casually mentions something she's struggling with, he doesn't forget. If she talks about her stressful week, he checks on her again. If she mentions her goals or dreams, he remembers and asks about them later. Her words linger in his mind long after the conversation ends. They guide his actions. They shape his responses. When he's in love, she becomes part of his internal thought process. This is why his presence becomes more stable, because he's not acting from interest anymore, he's acting from attachment. Consistency also shows up in how he makes her feel emotionally. A man who is already in love does not create emotional confusion. He doesn't give mixed signals. He doesn't treat her as an afterthought one day and a priority the next. He doesn't oscillate between warm and distant. Instead, he becomes emotionally predictable in a healthy way. He shows up with the same positive energy, the same effort, and the same sincerity across time. Her words about what she values, respect, clarity, emotional support, become anchors for how he behaves. And he aligns his actions because he wants the connection to grow, not collapse. You will also see his consistency in how he handles conflicts or misunderstandings. When he is not invested, conflict becomes an excuse to withdraw, shut down, or disappear. But when he is already in love, he stays present even in difficult conversations. If she expresses hurt or confusion, he addresses it. If she needs reassurance, he offers it. If she feels misunderstood, he clarifies. He doesn't let emotional distance grow between them because her feelings matter to him. Her voice has weight in his world. That is why he maintains emotional presence even when the situation is uncomfortable. Another layer of consistency is how he starts planning around her without making it obvious. If she mentions she feels valued when someone puts in effort, he begins to schedule his time more mindfully. If she says she likes quality time, he creates opportunities for it. If she expresses that she appreciates stability, his behavior becomes more grounded. This is not about grand gestures. This is about the reliability of his presence. He becomes someone she can depend on because he wants her to feel emotionally secure with him. Finally, his consistency extends into his long-term interactions. He doesn't only show up when he wants something. He doesn't disappear when he gets busy. He doesn't fluctuate based on convenience. She becomes part of his routine, part of his emotional rhythm. Her words influence him, guide him, and shape the way he engages with her. This steady presence is one of the most powerful indicators that he is already in love.